Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. The name of the song is The Things That Keep Us Here by Scott Buckley. So, I had a pretty intense conversation with a client the other day, and it kind of rattled me. And it brought up one of the core realizations and one of the core teachings of life. So one of the first things I want to say before I get to that is you, especially if you're on this channel, especially if you've gone through that really dark narcissist attack that just rattled you and scared you, and you went into what I call isolation, or the Great Wall of China, where you just stop dealing with people as much as possible. You are going through the final test. This is it. This is what it was all about. Now the good news is it's not necessarily a pass or fail test, and there's no time limit. What I'm going to say next is what it is all about, and what I want to do is I want to say it and then never talk again, ever. Just stop. That's it. Stop. Find that place of absolute nothingness, complete and total serenity, peace, and contentment. I've already said too much. It's the same exact space that God was in when He began to create. It's not empty, it's not lonely, it's not boring. It is the most meaningful, fulfilling place of contentment and creation that you'll ever experience. There's no future, there's no past, there's no time limit, there's no deadlines, there's just being. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad, there's just is. And pain and suffering is what leads you there. It doesn't have to be that way. You can choose to find that space. And when you finally do find that space of absolute nothingness, the void, you'll realize it's what you've been looking for your entire life. The whole reason you worked hard to get straight A's, to be a good student, to make someone happy, to please people, to start a business, to become a millionaire, to chase and chase and chase and chase and chase and chase and chase, is so you can find this space, this something that you want. You want peace. You want contentment. Let's say you make $100 billion, more money than you could ever spend in a million years. Let's say you own a country the size of the United States or Saudi Arabia. I mean, you are one of the most powerful people in the world. You own everything. You won 10 gold medals in the Olympics. You're a world champion at everything you do. You created the greatest computer design. You're the greatest artist on the planet. You've created the greatest pieces of artwork ever. You raised your children perfectly to be the perfect beings. And you did it with all your heart and all your soul, like you were desperately running a race trying to get somewhere without really knowing where you were going. And you meditated for 12 years non-stop, day and night, morning and evening, all day on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, for years, for decades. You were always looking for this one space. There was a location, there was a destiny that you were trying to arrive to. And it's always been there. It's not out there. It was never out there. It was not $1 billion. It wasn't 100 billion. It wasn't jogging 24 miles, a marathon. It wasn't winning 100 races or 100 boxing matches. It wasn't raising the perfect child. It wasn't having the perfect marriage. Those were the illusions. Those were all the distractions. You just wanted to feel good. Honestly, everything in life, whether it's work, setting goals, achieving goals, milestones, etc., having the perfect marriage that lasts for 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it is, it's because you were looking for contentment. You were looking for the very thing that sex gives you momentarily. You just wanted peace. You wanted to feel content. So, many stories, the typical story, it's probably the most spoken, written, and talked about in movies made about story, is the person that goes on this long journey, this long trek to find this Buddhist monk up in the Tibetan mountains or the Andes, or this Indian, spiritual teacher, or maybe down in South America, you climb this mountain. You go to Tibet, wherever, it's freezing cold, and you climb and you climb, and it's like a 3-day or 4-day trek to climb this mountain, this treacherous trail, and you travel all the way from your country halfway to the other side of the world. And you had already been meditating for 10, 15 years, going to all the monks and, whatever it is. And you thought what you were looking for was you were trying to find yourself, your purpose in life, your destiny. What am I here for? So you travel across the country. You saved up years, 2-3 years, to buy the plane ticket, to go across the world, to go to Tibet or wherever, and you begin to climb to find this hermited monk way up in the mountains. And it's 30 degrees below zero, and you fight the winds and the snow and the ice. And after all this time and exhaustion and freezing cold, you find this little cave with a little entrance, and the monk invites you in and says, come in, and there's a nice warm fire, there's bedding, there's carpeting, it's comfortable inside, it's warm. And you guys, he gives you some tea, maybe something to eat, and he helps you to warm up and sits you next to the nice big warm fire. Inside it's probably 75, 80 degrees. It's really, really warm, and it feels really good. And he asks you, he goes, why are you here? What did you come for? And the typical traveler will say, or maybe you will say, I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to find why I'm here, my purpose, my destiny. And he gets this really cute, kind of curious look in his eyes, and he smiles at you and he points at you, at your chest. And he says, "You're right there." And you look at him kind of lost, and you're like, "What?" And he goes, "You're right there. You're right there." Pointing at your chest. The grand illusion is, you're not out there. You're not 2 states over. You're not going to find yourself at the top of a Tibetan mountain in a cave with a Buddhist monk. You're not out there. You're inside here. I'm really missing Buddha Calm right now. He was probably the closest thing that I had to a father. He was this cute little monk, probably 5'5", 5'4", tiny little guy, but funny. Now, before I met Buddha Calm, I had found myself, and that's what led me to Buddha Calm. And the reason why I can tell you this story so confidently is because I found myself. Now, I've shared part of the story many times, in fact very recently, within the last I think 2 weeks or so. Essentially, I meditated for 14 days after I'd been meditating for, I don't remember if it was 9 years or 10 years at that point, but it was a long time, every day. 1 or 2 hours in the morning and definitely 2 hours in the evening, and I did this for years. I mean 7, 8, 9 years, and then I put on the weekends, I began to meditate 6, 8, 12 hours plus at a time, and then I put aside 2 weeks. And I meditated for 14 days, and I didn't eat any food at all. Nothing, not even oil, nothing. I was just trying to find peace. I was trying to find myself, and like I told you in a video recently, I just completely burst out in tears and cried out to God and begged Jesus. Begged God to come inside me and take away my anxiety and my fear, and I cried and I cried and I prayed and I begged, and I just gave up. The level of dedication was insane. It was decades of dedication. And it was like God just wasn't there for me. And without realizing it, I did the very thing, the very secret, the very key that I was always meant to do. But I thought I was quitting. But that was the key, to completely and totally let go. And what I call it is the art of letting go. And the next morning I woke up more refreshed, more well-rested than I'd ever felt in my entire life, literally since birth. I opened my eyes and something was different. Everything looked different. I mean, the colors, everything, the walls, my comforter, like everything just looked different. I remember I got up and something told me, go look in the mirror. And when I got to the sink in the mirror, I looked at the back of my hands, and they had aged at least 15 years or more. And I looked at my palms, and the lines seemed deeper. They'd aged and changed at least 15 plus years. It was like I was seeing them literally for the first time since I was probably a child. And something was telling me, it was like a feeling like, look in the mirror, just look. And I looked up, and I looked at my hair and my eyes, and I had some wrinkles a little bit. I mean, I was still a pretty young guy, but I was like, wow, when did I get that scar? And I was still pretty young looking, but it's like I had aged, and it was like it happened overnight. But I'd realized something. I hadn't actually looked at myself, my hands, my face, my hair, since I was probably a little kid, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I remember I looked into my eyes. I saw the most beautiful, crystal clear blue eyes with a happiness and a joy and a peace that you can only dream of. You can't even imagine. And for the first time in my life, I just thought they're so beautiful. And I remember looking at my face, and I didn't know if I was beautiful. I didn't know if I was handsome or attractive. All I knew was I was told I was ugly my whole life. But my eyes, they were beautiful. There was this joy inside, like something was almost like jumping and bouncing and with joy and laughter. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm an ugly person, but my eyes are beautiful. And for some reason, that's all that mattered. It was like something changed, and I felt good about myself. I realize now is I finally found myself, that inner being. I finally saw me. It's like a beautiful child inside. And that was the beginning of this lifelong journey to protect myself, to love myself, to enjoy myself, to be good to myself. And I cannot explain to you how happy I felt inside. It was just pure happiness, pure joy, pure love. And you know what? It was freedom. Freedom to be happy. Freedom to be joyful. Freedom just to be. And this is why I'm here. To set people free emotionally. You know, I remember I was looking in the mirror at my eyes, and it was almost like the eyes were smiling. They're so full of light, full of love, full of energy and happiness and joy. And I started laughing, and I started laughing like a 5-year-old kid that was just laughing his heart out with no worries, no right or wrong, no either or, just laughing. And I stopped and I looked in the mirror and I got it. I started laughing hysterically. Hysterically. It was like I was imagining talking to a Buddhist monk, and it's like, I'm not out there, I'm right here. And it's like this monk was looking at me, he's like, yeah, you've always been right here. Stop. Stop. There's nowhere to go. You are not lost. You never were. You're not out there somewhere. You're not at the end of a race. You're not at the end of a goal. You're not at the end of $1 million. You're right here. The final message, the final teaching, if I could call it that, is a lot of people get scared, and so they think, well, I'm going to do coffee, I'm going to go faster, I'm going to talk faster, I'm going to race faster, I'm going to get more work done, I'm going to, and you start getting caught up in this hamster wheel that's going nowhere. Even if you physically go across the ocean, across the land, and climb up this mountain for 3 more days or 5 days, you're not out there. You never were. You're inside. Literally, physically, neurologically, you are inside. And the way you get out of this narcissist trap is by stopping. Because then they have nothing to hold on to. Do you want to know what the final test is? It ultimately is stop. After decades, 28 years of absolute abuse, and really the word is anxiety. Anxiety and fear. day and night. Sweating. I used to lose 3 to 5 pounds at night every single night of my life since I was probably 1 year old. I would sweat and I would sweat and I would sweat. And I didn't know why. And I dedicated myself to finding the answer. I studied psychology in college. I read, honestly, from my living, I'm looking right now, my living room right now, I probably got 500 books on human behavior, psychology, meditation, NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, Reiki, Huna, Pranic healing, human behavior, and on and on and on. I mean, I cannot tell you, communication, everything. And when I started meditating for all those years, and I made a dedication of 2 weeks, I broke down. I begged God to take this out of me. And I quit. I gave up, and I thought I gave up on God, but I didn't. I gave up on the lies. I gave up on the rules. I gave up on all these false beliefs of like, well, you've got to find this monk across the world, or you've got to climb the Andes Mountains, or you've got to win the Super Bowl, and then you could be content with yourself, and then you can feel good about yourself. I gave up on the bullshit. I finally let go. I let go of the worry. I let go of the fear. I let go of the what ifs. Man, it was such a peaceful place. It's everything you've ever dreamed of. Now you might think, so what you're saying is then you can't achieve goals, you can't be successful, you can't win a boxing match or a race. No. From that place, now you can win. But it's not the winning that gives you the peace or contentment. It's the contentment and the clarity that gives you the win, that gives you the achievement, that gives you the ability to do all the things you want to do. To paint that picture, to start that business. You know how you hear people talk about the zone, and in sports or business, it's like whenever I achieved my greatest accomplishments, overcame the biggest challenge, this guy was a state champion, a national champion 3 years in a row, and this is my first year. It's part of the training and stretching and getting in the zone. It's like there comes a point where you just have to let go. And whenever I did that, I performed 100 times better. Because it's like you take the brakes out. It's like you take your foot off the brakes. There's no more hesitation. There's no what ifs. There's no questions. You're just going for it. You're doing everything the way you were taught to do it, in the way you were taught to do it. You get there to win. And it comes from a space of nothingness. That's the zone. You know what it is? There's no thinking. It's zero. Absolute clarity in your mind and in your heart. You're just following the vibe, the feel. You're following the instinct. You're following your heart because you finally opened up to your heart. This is what the internal awareness and emotional grounding class does for you. It teaches you these techniques to begin to find that space. It's also about something that we call walking meditation. It's about being in this open space while you walk through life. It's peace, it's freedom, it's emotional freedom. You're free to go. When you're in this space, narcissists don't come around. It's like they can't grab onto it. They can't relate to it. They just kind of move on in life. God bless you guys. This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. If you like this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, and if you want, go ahead and make a comment. And remember, there's a PayPal link right there in the description box if you want to go ahead and make a donation.